Hello, and welcome to a brand new day of free-to-play here on Magic the Gathering Real Life. Get the dish unlazed with me, Lord Rumfish. I made an entire Magic expansion. The first two videos, I introduced the color factions and the rules primer, and then we went over all of the white cards. Now we're on to blue. This is Wastes of Veldmar, my own custom set. So if you missed those first two videos, they help introduce a bunch of the concepts. Let's go ahead and dive in. This is Alchemical Infusion. It is an uncommon, instant, blue and 1. This is a combat trick. Target creature gains flying. Its base power and toughness become 4/4 until end of turn. This is pretty bread and butter stuff in blue. It's it's a handy trick. Useful on offense or defense, either one. Not too much more to say about this card. Alright, Ancient War Machine. This is a 4/5 artifact creature. It's common for 5 mana. It's a golem. It has Bulwark 3, and that means whenever this creature attacks, it gets +0/+3 until end of turn. So it blocks as a 4/5, it attacks as a 4/8. Pretty hefty. And when it enters the battlefield, create a trash token. I should probably modify the text box on this card to have the reminder text for a trash token. So, trash token is a colorless artifact token named trash. Has a pay 1, tap, sacrifice this artifact. You mill 1, then surveil 1. So, trash has some utility, fills up the graveyard, can give you a bit of card selection. And there are color groupings, factions that care about how many artifacts you have. There's one in particular, the Zarnik, that cares about having trash tokens. So this critter is fitting into a number of different strategies pretty well. You know, it's nothing exciting, but it's definitely a playable limited card. Battle Clone. This is a mythic. So this is a 4/4 shapeshifter warrior for 4 in blue. Has vigilance. And whenever it blocks or becomes blocked, you may have it become a copy of a creature blocking it or blocked by it. If you do, it retains this ability. So it doesn't turn into a copy of it until end of turn. It turns into a copy of it forever. And it keeps the Battle Clone ability where it can keep turning into something that it blocks or gets blocked by. It's kind of neat. Depends a little bit on the opponent to play along with you. But it's a reasonable enough chunk of creature that it's going to be pretty good in limited, and you might find a use for it in constructed. It might be more of a casual card. Bioelectric Converter. This is some blue removal at common. 1 blue enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchant creature loses all abilities, becomes a 0/1 artifact creature with tap, add, colorless. So you take one of their creatures, turn it off, make it nothing more than a chump blocker, but you accelerate their mana for colorless only. And of course you can play it on your own creature. So if you really want to, if you really need to, you could get ahead on mana by turning, I don't know, maybe a token or something into a mana creature. So it's neat. Can do a little bit of double duty that way, as removal or as mana acceleration. I like cards that have a bit of modality that way. I think this is going to be a good playable card, possibly for constructed. Brain Drain. This is a real-world concept where people who are dissatisfied with a job or with a country that they live in move away to where there are better jobs. So in this case, it's a blue sorcery, blue and X. It's a common. And target opponent banishes X. If X is 5 or more, draw 2 cards. So again, banish X means that player exiles the top X cards of their library. Similar to Mill, but instead of going to the graveyard, it goes to exile. This one, if you can make X5, so if you're paying at least 6 mana here, then you get to draw 2, which is a nice benefit. Probably doesn't get there in Constructed, but it could make it a reasonable limited card. Chicanery. This is a blue rare, 2 blue, 2 colorless instant. Counter target spell, then you gain control of up to 1 target token. That spell's controller controls. There's been a lot of tokens in Magic recently. I'm not trying to shy away from it. In Wastes of Veldmar, it's an area of complexity that I've decided to go ahead and embrace with this set. I've tried to ratchet down complexity a lot, but not with tokens. Decided to go ahead and keep those. They're an aspect of modern Magic that we're going to go ahead and run with. And Chicanery can let you steal one of the opponent's tokens. Sometimes that's just going to be something like a blood token or a trash token. But other times, maybe you'll get a 6/6 trampling worm. Or the ox from Bonnie Paul, something like that. Chronosiphon, 1 blue, rare, instant. Counter target spell, you skip your next turn. This card is probably bad. Countering something for 1 blue is obviously powerful. Skipping your next turn is obviously terrible. So where does that leave Chronosiphon? Probably not something you want to play most of the time. But if you find some way to use or break this card, then it'll be a fantastic counterspell. Otherwise, I would say this is relegated to the realm of the very niche. But every set in Magic kind of needs a few cards like this. Bad cards help teach players about the game. If you're new, then maybe you try this out and say, oh, skipping my turn's actually a pretty big cost. I don't think I want to do that. And now they've learned something about the game of Magic. So cards like this always serve a bit of a role, and there could be some way that you figure out how to use it without crippling yourself. Consortium Mana Mage. This is part of a cycle only for the 4 colors of the Consortium, and each one only gets access to color filtering to their allied colors. So the ones that bookend it, white and red, they don't make green because the Consortium doesn't make green. So 2 of them only make 2 colors of filtering, the other 2 make 3 colors of filtering. This is one of the ones in the middle. They all draw a card when they enter, which means they're pretty playable, maybe even in Constructed. Right, draw a card, banish 1. That's just playing into the themes of the set. And then you get to make all the Obscura colors here, white, blue, and black. So, yeah, whether it's limited or constructed, this could find a home somewhere. Creative Disposal. This is an instant. It's 1 blue at common. You mill 3, and then draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So, there are the trash tokens can help fill up your graveyard, but there's not a lot of ways to do self-mill that's not into exile in this set. This is one of them. That's also a cantrip, replaces itself slowly. Whether or not you can find a good use for this card, that's kind of up to you. It might have more constructed application than it does in limited. But if you manage to throw together a deck that wants to play around with the graveyard, this could be a good piece for it. Fruits of Industry, 1 blue enchantment. It's an uncommon. Whenever a land named Wastes or Snow-Covered Wastes enters the battlefield under your control, create a trash token. So there are cards that play into the sub-theme of Wastes matter in this set. In Limited, maybe you could do a sideways draft where you pick up the cards that care about wastes and you don't care quite as much about playing into the normal themes of whatever colors you're in. Um, this one's not bad for like Zarnik in particular. They love trash tokens, so if you had enough wastes to power this up, it would be useful there. Might be more of a constructed card than a limited card. Garbage Scow. We've got a 5/5 vehicle for 5 in blue. It's an uncommon. And whenever Garbage Scow attacks or blocks, you make a trash token. It crews for 1. I think in limited, this is going to be a good card. 5 toughness is a really solid place to be in this format. Generating trash tokens off of attacking or blocking is going to be good. It's just a very well-rounded card. Helps out a number of different strategies and synergies. So kind of a good glue card for the set. Harrowing Interlude. This is 1 blue. It's an instant, uncommon. Target creature phases out. That creature's controller banishes 2. So this is a creature protection spell, which can also be a tempo play. Right? You're not forcing the opponent to recommit their mana if you phase out the opponent's creature. You do mill them a little bit, though. And that can play into what the Pax Dread want to do. That is green, blue, black. They want to try to get a mill win in draft. Or you can use this to protect your own creature and it'll phase back in later. So, again, this is one of those cards that plays double duty that I kind of like. Homesick Merfolk. So she's a 2/1 for 2, Merfolk Citizen, Island Walk. And for this card in particular, I felt like bringing back one of the Land Walk abilities was very flavorful because she's homesick. Of course she wants to walk to an island. She's homesick. Or swim there, you know. And even though the land walk ability is kind of reduce interaction through unblockability, unblockability is part of blue's color pie. So I don't think this is doing anything unreasonable here. And when this ETBs, you banish cards until you reveal an island. Then put it into your hand. So I gave some thought to this, and white has always been able to fetch planes under various circumstances. There's also been cards that have let black and red fetch their basic. There was a core set some years ago where like Liliana of the Dark Realms, and then there was also a Spectre. It was Liliana's Spectre or whatever, or Shade in that set. That would let you fetch up a swamp when it entered the battlefield. And then in red, there are cards like Koth. You know, Koth of the Hammer and that kind of thing. That let you fetch up mountains. So really, the only color that doesn't already do this a little bit is blue. So since this card's at rare, I feel like it's probably not doing anything too crazy. It's not letting you color fix into other colors, unless you hit a non-basic that has the island type. But just overall, solid card. Illithid Infiltrator. Here's one of the Illithids lurking, being a sinister presence among the Pax Dread, giving them possibly the origins of their psionic powers. This is a 3/2 Horror Rogue for 3 in blue. Uncommon. When this ETBs, target opponent banishes 2. So this plays into what the Pax Dread are doing. And whenever an opponent exiles 1 or more cards from their library, target creature you control can't be blocked until end of turn. So if you've made the opponent banish, then you get to make a creature unblockable. Gives you another angle of attack for a Pax Dread deck. Incessant Delays. This is a blue common, 5 mana, instant. Put target artifact or creature into its owner's library 4th from the top. This is blue removal. You know, all of the cards start in your library to begin with, so sending them back there is pretty effectively being removal. It's a card that the opponent doesn't have in their hand. They don't have it in play. They don't even have it in their graveyard. It's in their library where everything else is. That being said, at 5 mana, I think it is reasonably costed, so I don't think it's going to be breaking the color pie too much here. I think it is a fine effect for limited. Industrial Excess. This is a mythic 2 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card, banishes one, and creates a trash token. This is more of a multiplayer card, probably. Something that goes into like Commander, casual formats, that kind of thing. I'm not saying you can't put it to use. In Draft in particular, Quelnai College cares about drawing cards. And this is a way that you can ensure that you are drawing extra cards during the game. Even though the opponent's also drawing extra, you have things that break the symmetry because you get bonuses and benefits when you're drawing extra cards. So, I don't think this card's unplayable and limited. Maybe you could find some constructed applications too. Insidious Intrusion. This is an instant for a blue and 1. It's an uncommon. Counter target spell unless that spell's controller banishes 5. You draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So they can always choose to banish the top 5 cards of their library to keep their spell, but you will always get a card draw to replace this card. So it's not a reliable counterspell, but it is very likely to mill the opponent for 5 and to replace itself with a new card. And this is, something the Pax Dread deck probably wants, and probably the other decks don't want it. Junk Haulers. This AI art amused me when I saw it. It feels kind of surreal. With this floating giant pack of stuff high up on their back. I decided to just use the art as it is. It kind of amuses me. This is a 4/2 for 4, Human Citizen. It's an uncommon. It's got Bulwark 2 and Ward 1, so it's a little bit hard to target, and it attacks as a 4/4. And when it enters the battlefield, you create a trash token. And this is just a good glue card. It plays into a number of different synergies well. Trades pretty well in combat, as a blocker. It's not the worst attacker either with the Bulwark. So it's just a pretty solid card all the way around. Mad Hermit. Common, blue and 1. 2/1, Human Warlock. He's got Bulwark 2. He's a pretty good attacker at 2 mana. And when this enters the battlefield, target opponent banishes 2. So it plays well with the Pax Dread theme. Just a solid blue common here in the set. Magnetic Crab. This is a 1/6 for 4. It's a common crab. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card, then discard a card. So you get card filtering for playing artifacts and artifact tokens and such. And Magnetic Crab costs 2 less to target with abilities of equipment you control. And that line of text, it just felt so flavorful that a creature that was magnetic, you'd be able to equip more easily. The equipment would just fly over and attach to it on their own. So the card's a little silly, but once I came up with the concept, I fought really hard to try to find a piece of art I could use to make the card work. And I think this is going to be a pretty decent card for you in Limited. Mental Guardian. We got a 3/2 Human Wizard at common for 3 in blue. It has Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 2 cards of your library. Then you may exile any number of them and put the rest back in any order. So this is a card selection method And it can also trigger self-banish, like with the Zarnik. They care about that. So just a helpful little card, reasonable body to trade with in combat. Mindbender. This is a looter. It's a 2/1 for 2, uncommon, Merfolk Wizard. Tap, draw a card, discard a card, then banish one. So plays very well with Quelnai College, cares about card draw. Also plays well with the Zarnik. Looters are just useful cards in general. So this is another way that will, secretly, sneakily help you find the land that you need. Helps you accelerate and color fix a little bit in the way that blue does by just drawing into the lands that you're looking for. Good glue card for the set. Overwhelming Evidence. This is a blue rare for 3 mana. Enchantment. With this ETBs, you get a 0/1 colorless wall, artifact creature token with defender, and a trash token. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 20 or more trash tokens on the battlefield, you win the game. That includes you and your opponents. So if your opponent has decided to embrace trash tokens as well, or if you have a way to give them trash tokens, like the enchantment we looked at earlier, then this card could be an alternate win condition for you. It's almost sure to be a constructed card, more so than a limited card. In limited, it's mostly junk. It does give you a couple of tokens when it enters, so it's not useless. But getting to 20 trash in limited would be pretty hard, I think. You need everything to fall into place just so. Prowling Sphinx. This is an uncommon. It's a 4/2 flash flyer for 5 mana in blue. When Prowling Sphinx enters the battlefield, banish 1, then return target creature to its owner's hand. So you get a pretty big tempo swing here by flashing in a 4-power flyer and bouncing one of the opponent's creatures back. So if this sticks for any length of time, that tempo swing could easily win you the game. Probably a pretty good card in the format overall. Psionic Drain. Got some art with the Drow. Those are the Dark Elves of the Forgotten Realms. This is a 4 mana instant. It's an uncommon. Target opponent banishes 4. You draw 2 cards. And yes, this one draws the cards up front. It doesn't make you wait until the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. There is some traditional card draw. This is one of them. So this is right up the alley of Pax Dread with banishing the opponent's library. But, 4 mana instant to draw 2 cards is fine as well. Psychic Attunement. This is a 4 mana instant. It's a common in blue. Banish cards until you reveal 2 non-land cards, then put those cards into your hand. So you just exile cards until you hit 2 non-lands. Those are the 2 that you get. This actually plays a little bit similarly to some alchemy cards that have the Seek mechanic, but this is a way we can do it in normal Magic. Right, because we're just banishing cards off the top until we hit the 2 that we want. Or the 2 we're going to get, rather. I think it's a pretty good card draw spell. Could prove to be, stronger on average than just normal card draw like Inspiration would be. Sometimes you want to hit land. So it won't always be better, but into the late game, a lot of times what you want to hit is just gas. And this always hits gas. Puzzling Sphinx. This is a 5/4 flyer for 7 mana in blue. It's an uncommon. When Puzzling Sphinx enters the battlefield, you banish 1, then tap target artifact or creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. So instead of bouncing something when this comes in, it taps something and stuns it. This is another pretty big tempo swing in your favor. It happens at sorcery speed, but you are committing a big thing onto the board and locking something down of the opponent's temporarily. And again, that's a pretty big swing in your favor. I think Puzzling Sphinx is going to be pretty good. Quel'Nai Student Body. This is a 0/6 rare for 4 mana, Citizen Wizard. It has Vigilance and Ward 2. Whenever you draw a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Quel'Nai Student Body and create a 1/1 white human creature token. So this is kind of representing Quel'Nai College getting more powerful as their ideas spread, as their protest movements spread. More people start joining the college. It's just a good payoff card. Something to give you a benefit for drawing all the cards that Quel'Nai is asking you to. It's going to be great in Limited. Don't know if it'll get there in Constructed, but you never know. Sleep on It. This is a 5-mana sorcery in blue. It's an uncommon. Draw 4 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So, with the card that we were just looking at, that would put 4 +1 counters on it and give you 4 1/1 white humans. This is a neat card. It's pretty aggressively costed for the number of cards that it gives you, but you have to wait a turn to see them. I feel like it's just in a pretty good space all the way around in terms of Limited. Maybe too slow for Constructed, but 4 cards is a lot for 5 mana. Surveillance Drake. This is a 3/3 flyer that's an uncommon for 4 mana. When Surveillance Drake enters the battlefield, surveil 3. And that is a bunch of card selection and maybe putting some things in your graveyard. So this is just kind of a rock-solid flyer in the format. I don't know that it's necessarily the best or anything, but 3/3 flyer for 4 is a good, solid playable. So I think this card will serve you just fine. Thoughts Astray. This is a blue instant at common, 2 blue and 1. Counter target spell, then that spell's controller banishes 3. So not only do you counter their spell, you're also milling them cards, going into exile. So, pretty solid counter spell. I don't know if people for Constructed are going to like it better than Dissipate and some of the other options that we have. But it's not bad. And it's certainly pretty solid and Limited if you can make the double blue. Thoughtstealer Magpie. This is a 1/1 flying bird for 1 blue. It's a common. And whenever Thoughtstealer Magpie deals combat damage to a player, that player banishes 1. And yeah, it's just a little bird, plays into what the Pax Dread are trying to do, milling out the opponent. I don't know that a 1/1 flyer does that well in this format, but this would be an okay way to have some early aggression and start poking in for the mill win. Tide Turtle. This is part of the vanilla cycle. All of them are cards that have never been printed at that power and toughness for their mana cost. So this is a 0/4 for 2. It's a turtle. Not too much else to say. I think this will be a pretty good early game blocker for you. And if you've got some pieces of equipment with big power boosts, then it's not that bad to run a creature like that in a deck that can pump it up. Trash Pixie is a 2/2 flyer. For 3, it's a fairy. And when this dies, you banish 2, then create 2 trash tokens. This plays into a number of different themes pretty well. Self-banish, trash tokens, those go well with the Zarnik Collective. Um, it's just a pretty good synergy card for the format. Warp Storm. It's not quite Repulse. It says blue and 2 colorless. It's a common instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Repulse gives you the card right away. This one makes you wait. Is this card still going to be pretty good? I think so. Yeah, not as good as Repulse, but still pretty good, especially for limited. Wasteland Psychosis. I believe this is our last one for blue. So this is a 4-mana sorcery. It's a rare. Target opponent banishes cards equal to 10 plus the number of lands you control named Wastes or Snow-Covered Wastes. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So this is mill. This is hard mill. It sends it into exile rather than the graveyard, but this is you trying to win with mill as your strategy. In a 40-card format like limited, this is going to be a bomb probably. I have to imagine that you're going to mill them for somewhere from like 11 to 15 most of the time in limited. Probably not 15 too often. Need a lot of wastes for that, but that is a big chunk of the library. And we've seen from Archive Trap recently that 13 is it's a pretty good ways towards a win condition. And if you manage to get it back from the graveyard, it's just game over. So, yeah, it could be a piece to help mill win, not just in limited, maybe in constructed. Maybe. And that wraps it up for blue. So join me next time for black. I'm having a lot of fun going through the cards of the set. I guess some of the big reveals are going to happen once we get up to multicolor and colorless. So stay tuned for that. Land will be fun too. That'll probably be part of colorless. So until then, like and subscribe. Check out my other videos. Help support the channel. And never stop honing your critical thinking and empathy.